everyone, and welcome to the show. Today on Pop Culturally Deprived, we're going to be talking about Farscape, the Peacekeeper Wars on your Pretty Please with a Cherry on Top podcast. I'm Mandi Kay.
And I'm Matthew Vose. It's been some time since we watched the series of Farscape, so now we're up to the mini-series. Before our conversation, I'll dive into a bit of the background info. Farscape the Peacekeeper Wars is a mini-series continuing directly from the cliffhanger ending of the final episode of Farscape. It was first aired in October of 2004. Before the series was cancelled, it had been scheduled for a fifth season. The creators and writers had planned out the major plot points to go through, so the Peacekeeper Wars is effectively all of those plots condensed into a 4.5 episode time frame. There were some changes that had to be made. Melissa Jaffa had a serious reaction to the new makeup and the prosthetics, so her role was virtually removed, and Rebecca Riggs as Grazer was now pregnant, so this was written into the show. So we had a character who was pregnant, rather than saying, oh, she's pregnant, let's kill her.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I had no idea she was actually pregnant. One of my thoughts in my thought stock was that it was interesting to me how well they usually do practical effects, but her pregnancy looked so fake to me. And hers was the one that was real. That's amazing.
Really pregnant.
Like, I don't know how they did that. Like, they actively made it look fake. I don't know. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, because she does, for part of the episode, wear a pregnancy belly window shirt.
Right.
You often get female villains who have a sort of cleavage window. She has a belly window.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since the cancellation, there's been many attempts to bring Farscape back. Nerdist ran some cut-down versions of Season 1 that were about 6 minutes long. They are now no longer available. I could not find them anywhere. In 2001, Brian Henson announced at San Diego Comic-Con that a new web series of Farscape was being developed by Sci-Fi. But then the writer's strike in 2008 delayed that. The following economic crash stopped the series from being made entirely. In 2014, show creator Rockne S. O'Bannon said they were having some progress with a movie development, but there's been no tangible update to that news since.
I'm actually really okay with that.
Hmm.
I feel like this was the ending that Farscape needed, and it does not need to tell another story.
Right.
So I'm okay with that.
Like Buffy, it's been continued in the comic book series.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is it like canon comic books?
Apparently so. I've not read them, so I think I will probably be picking them up at some point.
Interesting.
Because I've never read them, so I feel like I should.
Probably, with as much of a fan as you are.
So, do you want to give us a brief synopsis?
I think that you should wrap up our Farscape discussion and do all of the Farscape synopses. Synopses? I don't know how you say that word. Since you've done all of them before.
In Farscape the Peacekeeper Wars, there was a war with the Peacekeepers, and John Crichton decides to step into the middle of it and stop it at the same time as Erin being pregnant.
Yep.
There's a lot of other things that happen.
Not really.
Single plot is trying to be fitted into this miniseries.
Yeah, not really.
Okay. Mandi, how did you watch the series?
I still have Lauren's DVDs. She loaned me season 4 and the miniseries, so I was able to watch them the way they were intended to be watched, and it was amazing.
Ah, fab. Thank you, Lauren. And Lauren's actually sent some comments, so I'll dive into some of her thoughts about this later on as well, because she's a big Farscape fan. I watched this on Blu-ray, and I managed not to break this Blu-ray after breaking my season 4 disc 1.
Good job, Matthew.
Yeah. Don't make me angry, clearly. So, as I say, it's been a little bit of time since we watched season 4, but what were your expectations going into the miniseries?
I expected it to give us a resolution that the season 4 finale did not. And I also expected the bringing back of John and Erin to be more of a plot point for the story, and not the beginning of the movie that starts everything. If that makes sense. Like, I expected it to be consequential, to be a bigger deal than it was. And it really was not. It was just this thing they had to fix, and they did it in about 30 seconds, and hey, we're moving right into the action. So that was interesting.
Okay. And have you enjoyed it?
I did enjoy it. I have lots of feelings about it.
Okay.
I think they tried to do too much in the space that they had, and that they focused a little bit on some of the wrong things. Because this really was, I mean, it's called the Peacekeeper Wars, and it literally is just about stopping the Scarens and the Peacekeepers from war that's gonna destroy the universe or whatever, but at the same time, I've come to love Farscape because of the interactions between the characters and the relationships that the characters have with one another. And we didn't really get a whole lot of that in this. This was all driven by the action.
Right.
And so I was a little bit disappointed by that, which is why I think I was more emotionally invested and affected by the last 30 minutes of this 3-hour-long miniseries than I was the first 2.5 hours. Because the last half an hour is when they really start bringing closure to the relationships and kind of where they're going to go from here. And so I feel like they tried to do too much, but at the same time, they didn't do enough. And I know that doesn't really make sense, but it makes sense in my head.
Yeah, the stuff they do is a distraction that's not really needed. That second part particularly has a lot of gun battles.
Yes.
Which are all well and good, but we don't need them.
I kind of feel like they got, and I should have looked this up. I don't know who did the scoring for this, but I feel like they got somebody that they really, really liked, and so they put in a whole bunch of battle scenes just so they could underlay this really awesome score underneath it, because there was a lot more music in this than we ever got on the show. It stood out to me a lot.
Okay. I don't think I'd noticed, but certainly the bits that you're saying you particularly enjoyed, the dialogue and the interactions, that suffers from how much of a rush this whole thing is in.
Very much so.
And that, I think, is where part of the problem lies, is it feels rushed in terms of production, in terms of some of the stuff they're doing. Like there's people who are acting as their characters, and you don't quite feel it's landing.
Yes.
As it normally would. You're like, oh, they've changed too much, or they're very different than they were. And at the same time, you've got a lot being thrown at the wall. Not all of it is sticking, and not all of it is necessary.
Yeah. There were actually a few characters where I legitimately thought it was a different actor playing them, because the performance was not landing consistently with what I had become accustomed to.
Okay, like who?
War Minister Akna. I was convinced that was not Francesca Bueller. And then I looked it up, and it was. Lonnie Tupo doing Pilot's voice, I was convinced it was somebody else and not Lonnie Tupo, and I looked it up, and guess what? It was Lonnie Tupo. Yeah. Erin's voice sounded different a lot, even though, I mean, it was clearly her, but she didn't sound like her sometimes. And then I went back and forth on Jewel on whether or not that was actually Tammy McIntosh.
Yeah.
And it was just weird to me. And then, of course, Jothi's back, and I'm like, okay, that's clearly not the same guy. But then I second-guessed myself because I was wrong on everybody else.
And he's the one who is a different actor.
Right, yeah.
So on particularly Erin and Pilot, the audio processing was a different person or a different company, and the settings they'd used previously had been lost. So they were trying to reverse engineer the sounds and the sound effects they applied.
Okay.
So Erin's voice is almost down an octave. It's significantly deeper.
Right. I thought I was crazy.
And they've still got some of the depth of Lani Tupu's voice, so that's why it sounds a bit more like Crace and less like Pilot. And there's other people I think that impacted as well. And then, Jothi, his makeup makes him look like a sort of Ewok dwarf hybrid thing. His
makeup did not make it did make him look a little more like Dargo, so he looked like Dargo's son more than the original Jothi did, but that's because they relied heavily on the Luxon side and not the half human side like they did with the original makeup. But it was just very badly done. I mean, his head was huge.
Yeah.
It did not work for me.
The one who stands out in all of this is Chiana. Because it actually feels like it's a different character. She plays her so differently. Much younger, less together than we saw her at the end of season 4. A bit, I don't know, scattier.
That's interesting, because I didn't have any comments about Chiana other than her eyes. And then when she has her little breakdown at the end, but that made sense to me because she was emotional and distressed. The rest of it, I guess we just didn't really get a lot of Chiana, and so I wasn't really paying attention.
True. Yeah, she's the one who stands out for me, but all of them. John is pretty much the only one who I could say, yeah, that's still the same actor and the same style in the same way. Everyone else just has bits of differences to them. And Sukozu obviously has fundamentally changed.
Oh my God, yes. I looked at her for like a solid 10 minutes trying to figure out if that was supposed to be Sukozu.
Yeah.
And then once I really figured it out and like internalized, yes, that is her. Like it started to look like her and I recognized the same actress and everything. But at first she just looked like a completely different person. And it was weird. And I didn't like it. I don't understand the changes other than they were trying to, I don't know, do this like dominatrix dungeon thing with her and Scorpius. And that's why they made her look like that.
Yeah, they were leaning hard into the sexy look for her.
Yeah, it did not work for me.
And like, she's an attractive young lady, so you can see it, but Farscape's never particularly done that.
Right. And they had one moment between her and Scorpius that really, really leaned into it. And it just seemed so out of place. I mean, they hinted at the two of them having a sexual relationship in the end of season 4.
Yeah.
But it was never explicit. It was never outright said. And I guess in this, they didn't actually say it. Well, he did say, "You suffered my desire." So I guess they kind of did. But I mean, when he like grabbed her shirt and started pulling it down over her shoulders and like, you know, it was really, really explicit. And it made me uncomfortable, not because I'm prudish, but just because that's not something that we see in Farscape.
Absolutely.
And combining that with her new look and her new attitude, it was just all a little too much for me.
I do like the reveal that she's the spy. And
I was shocked.
Yeah, it really comes out of nowhere. Because I've been thinking, like, okay, who could it be? Well, it's not going to be any of the core cast. Maybe it could be Stark. Maybe it could be Scorpius doing his back and forth thing. But that was a good reveal. And you could see if this had been a full season, we could have had an episode or two of them, either them working it out and playing her, or us knowing it's her but no one else knowing it's her.
Right. Yeah, it would have been more interesting if we had been given hints, because the way it played, there was no hint, and we were just told by Scorpius. We don't even know how Scorpius knew. Yeah. He just did. Which is, you know, telling, not showing, and that's not good TV.
No.
What did you expect? How long have you known?
Long enough for you to service my desires.
But it was shocking. I mean, I was legitimately shocked. I had no idea. I wouldn't have expected it to be her, because with as back and forth as I was on season 4 about whether or not we could trust her, once she went off with Scorpius, in my head, okay, she's solid. She's picked a side. We know where she is. And so it didn't even occur to me anymore to think that I should still not trust her.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting just little thing. I don't know if that's just me being naive or the show not showing us what we need to be shown.
I like the reasoning they give for it, because she has shown that saving Kalishi is her sort of number one goal. So being given a guarantee and a way of doing it through spying for the Scarans, yeah, I can believe she'd do that.
I don't know if I buy it, considering her whole reason for existing is to destroy the Scarans. So I don't know that I buy it.
The way I read that is as a means to an end. She destroys Scarans to try and free the Kalish, but being given another way of doing it that's not killing everyone, that's not being dangerous.
But she was literally built and engineered to kill Scarans. That's what she does. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading that too literally. But I didn't buy it. I didn't buy her explanation for it. And I think, you know, maybe if we had had a whole season and they had given us an entire episode or a small arc of Sukozu so we could really understand her motivation, I could buy it. But with what they gave us, I just don't.
Yeah, doing the whole thing of the wrong thing, but for the right reason. And seeing her being manipulated by Arkner, Scorpius pushing her away or making her feel undervalued. Maybe over an arc, it could have been sold better.
Yeah. I wonder though. Now that you just said that, having them show her feel undervalued by Scorpius, that reminds me of the scene between Tsukozu and Eren, where Tsukozu is sad essentially because she has realized that Scorpius is her superior when she initially thought she was the superior person. And I guess in context, in the moment of watching that, I didn't care. I didn't really understand.
Right.
But with you saying that, it makes me think that was a moment of them trying to give us some insight into her insecurities and why she's doing what she's doing. But for me not to pick up on that until now means they just didn't do it well.
Yeah, in the moment, I thought that was about showing us that there is real caring and affection between them, so we can buy the relationship when we see it later.
Okay.
So trying to diminish, because it is a little bit weird, so trying to diminish how weird it is.
Well, I mean, it was always weird, so.
But there's a lot of things in this that are wrapped up in a line. So you say about her having a line about why she's doing this, and then a line about Rigel's cousin wanting to share the throne and what might happen there.
You are a direct descendant of the royal lineage. If our people will unite under anyone, it will be under you. Cousin Rigel, you are welcome to return to Hyneria. You must return.
If Bishan thinks I'll return to a shared throne, he is beyond deluded.
A line about Chiana's eyes being fixed.
Your eyes.
I can see again, Dargo.
What happened? How?
He gave me new eyes.
There's a lot they try to fit in that doesn't need to be fitted in.
Right.
Jothi coming back, I can understand, and it's a nice way of getting them out of a fix.
But
perhaps that would have had a longer arc of us seeing him growing in the ranks or trying to reconnect with them or something.
It did seem a little bit too neatly tied up.
Suddenly he's there and their cloaking technology is much better than it used to be. Yay.
Well, no, that I bought because, I mean, the ship that Dargo had was like from the ancient Luxans. So it was already an old ship. So that made sense to me. Just, it was the relationship stuff that didn't make sense to me. I mean, because they fixed things really quickly without actually talking to each other. It was just, oh, Jothi's here. You hurt me. Yay, we're going to fight together. I'm so proud of you, son.
But he's showing his commitment and his growth as a person.
Yeah. I mean, it was really, really fast. I mean, I'm glad it happened and I'm glad Jothi was there. But he was there more as a solution to a problem to make it easy for the writers to get out of this plot thing that they set up than he was for anything else.
And the one who's served very poorly, exactly as you said, is Jewel. She gets like 12 lines and she turns up in a kind of Xena-esque...
Your business?
Hiya, Jewel.
You.
Me. Crichton. You?
Crichton.
You're fairly crazy.
Oh, I knew you wouldn't forget me. The more we were apart, the more I knew you'd realize that you were meant to be with
Jewel.
Aaron. Jewel.
Get your own fantasy driplocks. They're having my baby.
Wild Thing styling.
Yeah.
Kissing John, which makes no sense. Sad to see Aaron there, which makes no sense. And then the planet's destroyed from orbit.
Yeah.
Bye, Joel. Thanks. Sorry, we couldn't explain what happened there.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. I mean, I understand needing to have the Eidolons destroyed, but the way they went about doing it made no sense. I liked that they tied it back to that seemingly random episode from season 4. So, I mean, that was nice, but then, of course, the whole Eidolon thing didn't really go anywhere. Really? So, I don't know. It was just whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like the Eidolons, either in concept or in execution. In concept, they help peace, but it really appears like they emit some kind of pheromone light that affects people's judgment.
Yeah, I think the concept is good, but the execution is not. I think it comes very much across as if they're basically bending people to their will, and if they ever wanted something besides peace, then they could probably do that too.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what the intent is, but that's how it comes across, especially the way the Scarens were interrupted the first time the guy when War Minister Okna comes in and shoots him.
Emitting his soft blue light.
Yes. And then all of a sudden the Scaren Emperor or whatever, he like doesn't understand what had been happening. You know, like it's like he was being brainwashed.
And I'm out, right?
You shall be released upon the signing.
And a great many lives will be saved by everybody's sympathy.
Do you really wish to broker peace with an enemy you are certain to destroy?
What is this? It is the proper course of action.
It goes into issues of consent, I think, which I actually have some other thoughts about consent with the whole Stark storyline too. And so I'm not sure that it works from an execution standpoint. I like the concept that there's a race of people who can promote peace, but I think it would have worked better if it was not something that changed people's minds, if it didn't brainwash them, if it somehow, and I don't even know how this would work, but if it somehow made people choose peace, but of their own free will. And I don't that sounds ridiculous.
How you do that,
Make them choose with their own free will. I don't know how you do that. But it needed to be done in a way that wasn't brainwashing, I think. Because I feel like even the way this ended, they signed the treaties and they agreed that the Eidolons could be a part of it. But if something happens and those Eidolons go away, then all of a sudden they're not wanting peace anymore and they're going to be fighting again. Like what's, other than their signatures on a piece of paper, what is actually stopping them from war other than the Eidolons constantly brainwashing them into not wanting war?
The goodness of a person's spirit.
Scarens have no goodness.
But I assume the signing that they do is actually an accord of, here is our space, here is your space, we give a bit, you give a bit, we come to some agreement.
Right.
Here's this territory, the neutral zone, that kind of thing. Yeah, in execution, they're just a little dull as a race.
Yeah.
They're almost hippie-esque, as you would expect a race of peace people to be.
I did like the explanation of basically their disappearance is what brought about the Peacekeepers, and that the Peacekeepers really did start by trying to promote peace. They just became soldiers because that's the only way they knew how to do it without having those brainwashing capabilities. Like, I thought that was a nice little detail, but it's not enough to make me appreciate the whole thing.
Yeah. And again, there's another line in there about we found a race who would suit that no one knew and we advanced them. It's like, oh, so they're humans. Okay. That's a line wrapping up that story. Thanks.
Oh, I missed that completely.
Yeah. And it's very Stargate, and it is literally a line to explain what happened, where the Sebaceans came from. And I don't even think they explicitly say it's humans. It's just a race that no one had found on the outer arm of the galaxy.
Peacekeepers.
Apparently your forebears attempted to carry on once we vanished. However, lacking our mediation abilities, they kept peace the only way they could. At the muzzle of a weapon.
And that's why they're hated.
Oh, it wasn't such at the beginning. We took great care to choose a species no one had met before. We found your kind, primitive and barely clothed, far removed on the galaxy's outer spiral. Having brought some of you back, Your evolution was accelerated with generous alterations until you became our trusted acolytes.
Okay. I think when I heard that, I just assumed he meant they found Sebaceans and then, directed their evolution or whatever into whatever they were. I didn't read it as that, but, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they've been working towards tying it together with John finding that toy that had an Egyptian symbol on it and so on.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you're right, because that was on the Eidolon episode. Yeah. Oh, okay. Bringing it all together.
But in a line, again, we probably would have had an episode or two uncovering the history of it, maybe.
Yeah. That would have been far more interesting than 2.5 hours of shooty, fighty, kick.
There was a lot of shooty in this.
Yes, there was.
But let's talk about some of the good stuff and what was done well. Cool, silence. No. The most obvious one, I think, is the pregnancy.
Wait, you're saying that's good stuff?
I think so.
The baby is good stuff. The pregnancy is utter ridiculous absurdity.
In Rigel? Yeah.
In Rigel, in transferring a, 2-term baby from Rigel to her, somehow with this, thing that had to be inserted in places I don't want to know about.
With Stark watching.
It's just... No, it was ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous.
I'm really sorry about this, baby.
It's alright, just get it right the first time.
Nobody gets it right the first time.
Wait!
Are you okay?
I'm pregnant.
Kind of having the baby be born in the middle of a war zone was, I mean, okay, yes, we all know Aaron's a badass, but it was a little too on the nose, I think.
Yeah, they couldn't have done it simply, could they?
No, nothing about the pregnancy was simple. And I feel like they did that so that they could keep Aaron not pregnant for most of the action, which is why we had pregnant Rigel, which, oh my God, pregnant Rigel.
You take it out of him and you put it back in her.
Whatever it takes.
Doc won't do it. Won't? I want this thing removed immediately.
It's not a thing.
Fine. I want this miracle of life to thrill out of me.
We should talk about Rigel.
Let's do it.
No, let's finish our pregnancy thing and then we'll go back to Rigel. So it didn't work for me, but it sounds like it worked for you.
I like your explanation. It's a comment Lauren made as well about by making him pregnant, she gets to do the running around action stuff whilst not being pregnant. I suspect actually we're going to be parents in a matter of days, not 9 months, is a thing for the miniseries, so that we can have a baby by the end of it. Yeah. Yeah, I like a lot of the lines he gets about it. I like a lot of the lines other people have about it, the general comedy of it. It's the sort of comedy I'd expect from Farscape, and it's done quite well. War Minister Arkner saying, I assumed he was a male. Oh, it's a tumour. I'm dead soon.
Strange. I always assumed His Highness was male.
Tumour. Not long to live.
I would agree.
You're right. There were some really great one-liners about it, and I think if we had been given the space to explore that, rather than having it crammed into the miniseries, I probably could have enjoyed it a little bit more. But it kind of lost me when they did the transfer as Rigel was going into labor,
right?
Essentially. That's when it lost me, because I'm sorry, I cannot suspend my disbelief that much. And yes, I understand that we're talking about a space show about aliens and little frog aliens and all these other things. I can suspend my disbelief to enjoy all of that within this universe. I cannot suspend it enough to believe that there's a device that can transfer a living, breathing, fully formed child from one body to another. It just lost me at that point.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can buy it because they've done stupider things. Okay. But yeah, I can also see it being one of the things that throws you out of it. But I enjoy Rigel being pregnant and some of his stuff afterwards as well. He's probably served best by a lot of the script, but also he doesn't have a stake in any of it. You could largely take him out, and it would the episodes would be unchanged.
Right. And that's actually what I wanted to bring up with Rigel. Really, the only two things he did in this episode were he ate John and Aaron and then threw them up so they could be put back together. And then he kept the baby so that he was pregnant the whole time.
Yeah.
That's all he did. Nothing else.
No. I love the moment of him taking the baby at the end because he can hover and keep it safer. And
yes.
That's a lovely character moment from him. It's a nice moment of trust from Aaron of giving the baby over. All round, that's quite a well done moment. Which it's almost in comparison with the bit when she's in labour and she doesn't want to give up the gun because she wants to keep shooting because shooting makes her feel better.
Right.
Now that, again, could be a really good character moment of her trusting John and giving up a bit of control, but it's played for humour. So it doesn't land as strongly as perhaps it could have done. And yeah, everything around her going into labour is mostly played for comedy, with Chiana trying not to take responsibility of it and saying about how she blew out several walls on Moya so that Moya could give birth.
I can't birth a Gnarl. I don't want a Gnarl. I hate Gnarls. I'm still a Gnarl myself.
You help Moya give birth.
I blew out a wall in 3 tears. I concur.
The baby's head is up. It has to be down. Don't make any structural changes. I'll be right back.
It's a good line.
I did laugh at
but
that.
It's all very funny, yeah. Her taking the knife. I'll cut it out of me. is funny, but that's all we're going to the labour for, is a funny moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and until the baby is actually born.
Yeah.
And then I did really like John's line right when the baby comes out is, wow.
Yeah.
And I did really like that.
Because they do some good effects on the newly born baby. It genuinely looks like a very newly born baby.
That baby was a couple weeks old, but yeah, it was. He was a baby.
I'm always impressed when shows actually make it look quite realistic.
Yeah.
That's probably not easy to do. But then the labours followed up closely with Dargo's last stand, which is pretty much the big moment of all of this.
Yes.
In terms of character, anyway.
I was not ready for it.
Yeah, did you see it coming at all?
No. I honestly didn't believe anybody of our core cast was going to die by the time we got to this point, because they had already faked out Chiana and Dargo. And essentially, Chiana and Dargo were dead, except Jothi just happened to show up right in the nick of time. Because I'm also pretty sure that they were floating in space for more than the quarter of an arm that Dargo could survive in space. They just whistled right past that. So because they had already done that, I didn't expect it to actually happen. I thought, if anybody was going to die at that point, it was going to be John. And I didn't really think they were going to do that either. And so I wasn't ready for it. I didn't expect it. When he got hit, I was slightly distracted. And I happened to look up and I see him saying, I'm okay, it's going to be fine. And he pulls it out. And I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? And so I rewound it and rewatched what happened. And it seemed so inconsequential that I was like, oh, he's not going to die. And then all of a sudden they're running out and Aaron stops and he says, are you going to make it? And he just shakes his head. And I'm like, wait, what? And it blew my mind. And then I started crying. And once I realized what was going to happen, it broke my heart. It did. It broke my heart.
I think this is a nice place to put in something that Lauren sent us. So Lauren is a friend of the show who lent Mandi her DVD so she could watch this. And I reached out for her thoughts on Peacekeeper Wars. And when it aired, she actually threw a party for friends of the show, which is quite a fun thing. And I said specifically, what was your reaction to Dargo? So she said, Dargo, then it went to commercial. During other commercials, I was playing hostess. That one, I just sat there staring. I don't think I moved until someone else at the party speculated that perhaps he wasn't really dead. After all, we didn't see the body, and others have come back. I turned my head and looked at my friend, who was hugely into the show as well. I don't even remember which of us said, no, he's gone. I didn't cry. I never have. I cry for John and Aaron and the baby. I cry at the end when they name him. But to me, Dargo's death is too awful and too perfect for tears. It had to be someone. It was Jelena, then Aaron, then Crace at the end, never mind in the middle, and then John and Aaron. It had to be someone. Dargo had everything he ever wanted right then. Of course it was him. His story was in most ways over. It was time for his happily ever after, but this is Farscape.
Come on.
Someone's gonna stay here. May as well be me.
She makes a good point, and those are a lot of the same things that I said about John and Aaron in the finale, in the season 4 finale, that, you know, their story was done. They had everything they ever wanted, and so it was okay. And she's right. You know, Dargo, he made up with his son. He had plans to be with Chiana. You know, they were going to be happily ever after. And, you know, Dargo's a warrior. He's a Luxon. And so he actually got to go out fighting, which is the best way for him to go out. And so she's right. It just broke my heart.
It was quite interesting when we were watching it here. My partner, halfway through, said, they're going to kill Dargo, aren't they? I think because we'd had the fake out, and then because not only had season 4 largely wrapped up his story and gotten him to a good place, they then wrapped it up even further here with a nice bow of, and he and Jotham have made up. It's a little too perfect.
You're right. I didn't think they'd do it. I didn't. I mean, because at this point, every major death we've ever had in the show has been undone. And so I just didn't believe that they would actually really kill somebody.
Yeah, they've killed people before.
They have killed people before, but nobody that actually... Okay, besides Zan. Let me say that. Besides Zan. And that was not for story purposes. That was because the actress needed to not be on the show anymore. You know, and so that to me is a little bit different.
Okay. I wonder if there had been... They were worried about it being leaked that Dargo was dying. So that's why you first off get the fake out that he's dead. And then you get a second fake out when the wall of water hits him. When they're looking for Stark. And I wonder if they were sort of playing with the expectation. Either for people expecting it, or it got leaked in a magazine, or the actor said something wrong in an interview or something.
Yeah, maybe. The wall of water didn't even faze me. Like, I never for a second thought that was a fake out. I was just like, oh, okay. He's fine.
And he gets kind of goodbye scenes with most characters. The only one he doesn't is Aaron, but I think that's because he gets quite a deep moment with her earlier. And it's one of the few stories that would have been quite interesting in a season 5, where she makes a comment about he wants to be a father, so I want to be a mother. Well, that's why I want to have children, because he wants it so much. And it would have been quite interesting to see her coming to terms with becoming a mother and then having a child as well. I would have quite appreciated a season 5 that had an ongoing plot about Aaron coming to terms with being a mother, having a child and being a mother. It would have been quite an interesting thing to have seen. But it's largely wrapped up in her conversation with Dargo.
I thought she had already come to terms with having a child, because she seemed so excited about being pregnant towards the end of season 4.
And then they have this other plot. And again, they've got another plot, so we'll throw it in the 3-hour miniseries, but we'll do it in a conversation.
Yeah, I guess you're right. They were literally trying to wrap every possible thing up in this 3-hour show, and it did not serve them very well, I think.
When I was reading some of the background information, apparently they had versions of the script that had Chiana's brother in there as well.
Oh.
To wrap up him, because he's a rebel freedom fighter, so a wartime thing might have been a good use for him. But they said it became too much.
See, I think I would have rather have seen that than some of the stuff they did give us.
Yeah. Well, okay, so as an interesting thought experiment, what would you... my thesis is the episode is too full of stuff, and it doesn't have enough room for character and dialogue and good interactions. So what would you take out, or do less of, to allow for some of the stuff you would have liked.
I would have cut the fight scenes in half. Because there were so many. They were just fighting, and shooting at each other. Like, everywhere. Every set we had, they were fighting, and it ended up being destroyed.
Yeah.
On the ships, on the various planets they were on, everything gets destroyed. And I think if they had diminished some of that, we would have had space for more character development.
Particularly the fight with the guys on the harpoons in the first half. No, I think that's pretty much the only fight, so they need some action in there. But that's the one that's probably the most unnecessary.
Yes. I had even forgotten that it happened until you just said that, which, you know, if it's not memorable, it certainly doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, it doesn't serve a purpose.
And it was just too much. I feel like they had the Scarens. I mean, because even the Peacekeepers weren't even really part of the fight, unless I'm really just blocking this out. The Peacekeepers were just floating around in space, and we kept seeing a pregnant Graza. But all of the actual fighting was the Scarens shooting at John and his crew in all of these various places, with the Peacekeepers saying, "Oh, but we've got to fight because we want the wormholes too," and then they don't actually do anything.
Yeah. It would have been better if it had been called the Scaran Wars. Because, the Peacekeepers are not a part of this. Right.
But they kept trying to make us feel like they were. And so they could have either cut down on the Scaran fights, because I feel like we got the same fight just over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so they could have cut down on that and actually let the Peacekeepers participate a little bit more instead of just floating in space observing. And that would have freed up a lot of time.
Anything else that you would have taken out? So I'd happily lose a lot of the Eidolon stuff.
like I said, I like the concept of the Eidolon stuff. So I don't know what I would replace it with, because
all the ceremony stuff.
I don't know that they could have come to the resolution at the end without the Eidolons.
I think all the debating and the ceremony and passing on the powers and so on.
Okay.
I cared so little about it because it wasn't anything to do with our guys.
Yeah. I can see that. And I could have actually done without the whole bit with Stark and how he ended up being involved with that plotline. Because that really bothered me.
Yeah, you said you had issues with the consent of that.
I did. I mean, Stark is literally saying no, 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 and Crichton holds him down, forces his mask off, and makes him take this Eidolon's power while he's screaming no, that he doesn't want to do it. And I just had a really, really hard time with that. And it was bad enough. I mean, Stark was already crazy, but he was so upset afterwards. He didn't want anybody to touch him, talk to him. I wasn't okay with that. And I did end up later asking if the ends justify the means, because it did end up being a quote unquote good thing, because he was able to transfer that knowledge that would have been lost forever to the remaining Eidolons. But I just don't know that it's okay what they did to him. Especially since... Okay, can you explain what happened to Stark in the end? Because I don't understand.
No.
Okay.
Largely, as it's put across, is his experience with the Eidolons brings him a measure of peace from the psychosis that he has.
But how does that make him not be this, like, creature of light that does things? Okay, good. I'm not crazy. You don't know the answer to that either.
Because he's spent? No, I don't know. It's not very well explained, other than he's found a measure of peace. And there have been moments before where he's been able to, with a measure of control, take his mask off and it's not overpowered everyone. So maybe that's it now. He has control over his power and he doesn't need the mask?
Okay. So good things came of it. You know, if he did lose his crazy and he became peaceful and he understands himself better and he was able to save this knowledge from becoming extinct, those are great things. But the way that they did it, I was really uncomfortable with. And I just don't know. I don't know that I'm okay with it. But at the same time, if they hadn't made him do it, this would have had a very different outcome.
Yeah. And I can see where it would make you feel a bit squirmy, the consent thing. I think I've been more okay with it because I think his no, I'm not worthy. And they're trying to say, yes, you are. But yeah, it would have been better served if, yes, you are, you helped Delvian priestess and they're as good as these people or something. And he goes, oh yeah, I will do this for Zan. Or, my experience with Zan makes me perfect for this.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than just forcing him to do it.
Right. And see, that's what I was expecting them to do was, to kind of call back to the previous experiences that he's had. And I would have been more okay with that, if they could have reminded him, you are worthy because you've done these things, and then they wouldn't have had to force him. And so I think it was the force that I had an issue with, not what happened, if that makes sense.
It's reminding me of another moment where the writing doesn't quite land as well. When they enter the battle over the planet and Moya goes into the water.
Right.
They do this thing of, Moya's taking control, and now we're in the water. It's almost like they remembered, oh, yeah, Moya's supposed to be a character, we need to have her do something in these episodes. And I would have rather it been more about Moya suggests to Pilot, or Moya says, I want to go into the water, and Pilot says, Moya's prepared to do this, she thinks she's going to be okay, but it means they can't follow us. And they all discuss it, and they agree, yes, let's go down, and then let's deal with the repercussions from there. But just Moya taking over and doing that, which she's never really done before.
She did once, but it was only when it had to do with Talon.
Yeah.
That's the only time she ever did it.
So this sort of comes out of nowhere, and I don't quite get it. So I would have preferred something slightly different in the writing for that.
Yeah, Moya and Pilot both were not really characters in this.
Yeah.
I think.
I want to read Lauren's summation of this, because it was quite nice and summed it up nicely before we move on. She said, despite its flaws, The Peacekeeper Wars punches me in the guts every time, from Aaron's opening narration to the final scene on the terrace. While I wish we'd had Season 5, I'm so thankful that we at least got this much, instead of leaving John and Aaron as scattered bits of sand.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you feel like it's be thankful for what you got, rather than sad that it's over?
Yes, because, like I said at the beginning, the last half an hour was really good. The last half an hour, I essentially started crying when Dargo died and didn't stop until the end. And so it started as sad, but then it ended happy.
Right.
And so there were a lot of emotions going on as they were bringing closure to everything. And they did manage to bring a lot of closure to the stories and to these characters that we've been experiencing. And so I am glad they did that, considering the way they did leave Season 4. I'm glad they gave us kind of that happily ever after that I want.
Right.
It wasn't happily ever after for Dargo, but at least his death was a good death, and it was at the end of his story. And so it's not like there were unresolved things for him. And we got the core. If you'll recall, when I talked about Season 4, I was okay with it ending with John and Aaron dying because they were finally happy. And so that was a good place for their story to end. And since they brought them back, they gave us an actual happily ever after with them, which of course is always going to be my preference. We've got John, Aaron, and the baby, and it's a very Lion King-esque moment. But it was wonderful, and I'm really glad, and they're all singing together, and it's implied they're all singing together on Moya, and so there's still those who are left are together, and that just made me happy, and so it lets me believe that they're gonna live happily ever after, in peace, no more war, none of this crazy stuff that we've been dealing with for the last 4 years, and so I'm happy. Nice.
Would you say it's one of your the favorite bits of the whole thing? How it ended?
Only the last bit. I sat through a lot of crap over the course of the series and the mini series here, but the last Yeah, I was really happy. And naming the baby Dargo Soon Crichton could not have been more perfect.
Nice.
Your father and I want you to have a name that means courage and strength. So we have chosen Dargo Soon Crichton.
So is there anything else that you would have said as you've come away remembering, or as a favourite moment?
I mean, the ending is really the big thing, I think. There were some great one-liners, I think, when Dargo and John got to say goodbye to each other, and, John tells Dargo, "You're the closest friend I ever had," and Dargo says,
"You're the closest friend I have. You could have done better. Nowhere in the universe."
I mean, that I was crying and laughing all at the same time, because that is such a John and Dargo thing. That is exactly their relationship, and that was a good way for them to say goodbye to each other. And then when I can't stop laughing to even say it, when Dargo says Chiana, and John's like, yeah, of course I'm going to take care of her, blah, blah, blah. And Dargo's like rolling his eyes like, "No, get out of my way so I can talk to Chiana." That was amazing. So they did Dargo well with his ending and with his final goodbyes, and I really, really did enjoy that. Okay,
yeah, again, good character
that makes me
moments.
happy and sad all at the same time. I wish we had more of those things.
Yeah, and that's exactly why that Rigel moment on the hover sled stands out to me. Because that's a good moment of him as a character. He makes a little joke about it, but he's stepping up and doing the thing.
Yeah. And also, Rigel had another little moment that I liked, although I'm still fuzzy on the motivation behind it. He still had the ring that he had threw up and gave it to them. And so part of me is like, did that little turd try to steal it because he knows it's valuable and that's why he had it this whole time? But then he's trying to get married and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to give it to them." And so it was cute.
I think he has a line like, "Well, I wouldn't go down to the seabed for nothing."
It was with a crystal. I kept it moist for you.
It's my mom's ring.
That's wonderful.
You didn't think I'd go back into that cold ocean for nothing.
Oh, you're right. He did. That's exactly what he meant. So, I liked that he.
My boy's getting paid.
I think having the baby really, fundamentally changed him a little bit.
Yeah.
And he started to appreciate life a little bit more. I don't know. But he did over the course of the series have some really great character relationship moments. And so it wasn't entirely out of character for him to be that sentimental.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I always enjoy it when Rigel's sentimental, as long as he's not sentimental all the time. What about you? I know you had some favorite moments. This is your favorite universe.
There's a few bits they do that are sometimes quite obvious that don't land for me, but there's a couple that really do. The repeated wedding ceremony, attempting to get married. I quite enjoy when a show or a movie does this kind of 3-beat trying to do something and it never quite lands. The Mask, Jim Carrey always almost kisses Cameron Diaz all the way through, and then at the end they finally get to kiss. It's like, oh, okay, finally. And in this, the fact that they keep trying to get married and it never quite gets through, it makes me laugh. And then when they get to the final wedding ceremony and it's, "We don't have time. Do you love each other enough to spend your life together?" "Yes." "Well, then you're married." That's perfect. That's really nice.
I would say the actual ceremony with the tiny, tiny line, "Do you love each other? Great, you're married," was great. The humor with Stark leading up to that bit did not work for me, and I hated it.
Yeah, him doing the different things, yeah.
Yeah, and then the slap every time. That didn't work for me, but the actual, "Oh, okay, do you love each other forever? Great, you're married," I loved that bit.
Yeah.
Okay, you two love each other. Yes! Enough to be married forever.
Yes!
Then you are. Congratulations.
Because it's all you need. So it's really nicely done. And a similar sort of moment is when they go on board the Scarron ship and they're scanning them for weapons, and Aaron's just continually producing different weapons.
Right. Yeah,
perfect.
That's so Aaron. Yeah, that was perfect.
And one thing is not particularly a moment or anything, but the graphics on the wormhole weapon at the end are really impressive. It looks properly destructive. It doesn't look like anything we've seen before on the show.
Right.
I really like it. And the way he does that, and everyone does appreciate, oh, holy shit, this is going to kill everyone.
Mm-hmm. My thought on the wormhole was wondering if basically this wormhole weapon is a Cathla in space.
Is that what a Cathla was going to do? That's what the Satanic Temple at the end of season 6 was going to do.
Well, but I mean, in the end of Becoming, a Cathla is this like swirling vortex that's getting bigger and bigger. That's going to envelop the world into this other, demon dimension or whatever. And so that's what I was reminded of this swirling vortex of a black hole just getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. The is John going to be able to stop it or not didn't land for me. Like, oh no, I hope he can stop this thing that's going to kill everyone that we know and love.
Honestly, I wasn't sure.
Really?
But I legitimately was not sure he was going to be able to stop it. I mean, I assumed it would be stopped, but I didn't know if John could stop it. I didn't know, will the Ancients step in and do something, or...
I see, yeah.
Or are they actually going to end this with the universe ending?
Because that's one way to wrap up your series.
Yes.
No, but we're not going to do a movie.
I didn't really think they were going to do that, but for me, it was touch and go. I didn't know if he could do it, or... I don't know. I wondered if even firing the weapon was going to kill him. I was very concerned about what was happening on my screen at that moment and during that section, especially since John was so freaked out about what was going on. And he didn't really explain anything to anybody, even to Aaron. Aaron's like, well, is it worse than, killing our baby? Is it worse than killing me? Is it worse than blah, blah, blah? And he just looks at her, and they don't really explain what's going on until later, like 5 minutes later, he finally does the exposition that this thing is going to keep building and building and building until everything is gone,
Yeah, and the pick up a penny, double it again, double it again. It feels like them trying to do a John-style rant, and it starts well, but the way it ends up with referencing the IRS and so on, it's...
Yeah.
Not
we
quite
didn't get any good John rants in this. That was really, I think, the closest we got. And it fell flat because he didn't hit all of the pop culture stuff that he usually does. It was...
You mean you didn't get a Buffy reference is what you mean?
Not from him, no. That would have been nice.
Yeah. That's a bit that I could have done without, actually, is when he takes Starleak to see Einstein. There's no point to that moment.
I liked that.
It's a nice moment. I could live without it, though, and have more character dialogue stuff going on.
I would rather keep that moment and get rid of the fighting than keep the fighting and get rid of that moment to get stuff. I liked that we got continuity from the show directly tied into the miniseries, and I like that we explicitly are told, even though you really want this thing that John supposedly has, John doesn't actually have that information. And then they give it to him so that he can use the weapon to stop a war. I kind of like that. And I liked somebody having more power than the Scarran Emperor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little thing, and if it hadn't been there, I wouldn't have missed it, but I like that it was there. Well, is there anything else that we need to talk about the Peacekeeper Wars?
Only, is there anything that you still feel is unresolved or that you'd want to see more of if there was more Farscape?
No, I don't think so. I think it ended well. I think I'm glad that we never got anything else after this. Although now that I know there are comics, I'm curious about what they did in the comics to move it forward. I mean, I'm sure they just threw conflict at them and made them have to start fighting because that's what you do. But leaving this the way it did, I think, was good.
Right.
And I think we're in a happy place. I got my happily ever after with all of the characters I care about.
Nice.
So I don't need anything else. What do you think?
I would like to know more about the Nabari and the space virus that's going to kill everyone. That always felt like a very unfulfilled storyline. And I'd like to see them get back to Earth and do something with Earth. And that was one of the good things that Stargate SG-1 did, is they developed Earth into this actual force in the galaxy, which was always a nice turn. It would have been quite interesting to see here.
You're not wrong. I mean, of course you're not wrong because it's your opinion, but I think I can agree with that. I think I'm happy not having it, but if we were going to get more, I think both of those are things that I would enjoy seeing.
And I suspect they never would have done going to Hyneria and Rigel reclaiming his throne, because imagine all the puppets and puppeteers they would have had to work with, and all the
my God,
chest-high walls they would have had to sat on so that people could stand behind them.
Right. Yeah, I think, although I do wonder if, since Dargo is dead now, I wonder if Chiana went to Hyneria with... I'm still messing that up. I wonder if Chiana would have gone with Rigel, or if she doesn't have Dargo, if she, would go looking for her brother.
Yeah.
Or is she going to end up with Jothy somehow? I mean, I would be pissed off if she did, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I would like spin-off of Chiana and a more grown-up version of John and Aaron's child traveling, looking for Neri.
Okay.
That's my Farscape spin-off.
Well, if you would like to tell us what you think about the Peacekeeper Wars or any other movie that we've discussed, you can use the hashtag PCDeprived on Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/eloquentgushing. You can find each of us on Twitter. I'm at Mandi K.
And I'm at Matthew Vose. We're also on Patreon, so for as little as $1 a month, you can gain access to exclusive content and also help support the network. To find out more, visit patreon.com/eloquentgushing. And if you want to keep up to date with the latest news and announcements, remember to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. The link is on eloquentgushing.com.
We'll be back next week with another episode of Pop Culturally Deprived. Until next time, I'm Mandi K.
And I'm pregnant, not incapacitated. Pop Culturally Deprived is an Eloquent Gushing production. For more information, go to eloquentgushing.com or find us on Twitter at eloquentgushing.